What's up, guys? Shawnthebro here. Today we're going to be handling the second part of the action RPG tutorial series in Unreal Engine and C++. So, quick note before we actually get started on this tutorial. For those that are familiar with the third-person tutorial series I've done, this is that series. It has been converted to the action RPG series. I did that to have a solid direction to go in from now on. However, I won't require anything from that other series to be done for these tutorials to work in the Action RPG series. So for anyone who's new or just wants to see how to make your stat screen, don't worry. You won't need anything from the prior episodes. If you do want to see them for any reason, go ahead and click on the icon in the top right corner right now to go to the first episode of the third-person tutorial series. Otherwise, if you're here for the Action RPG series alone, then we're going to be finishing up the stat assignment screen. So I can use 3 different methods of assigning stats, and they will actually change our stats in the game. We'll be doing this with levels and upgrade points as well. So you'll only have a certain amount of points you can upgrade and all that good stuff. And then afterward, we will confirm, and all the points that you were allotted to have will show up on the screen at the end once you hit confirm. Okay, so this will be good for either your initial character creation with their skills and stats or leveling up. Now, for those that watched the first part of the Action RPG series, you've already seen me make the variables in here. However, for those that have not, I am just going to show you the variables I have really quickly because I don't think that is too much out of the way here. So we're going to be using 4 variables in particular. Upgrade points, strength value, dexterity value, intellect value. So basically, use a variable to hold the value of your skill level for however many skills you have or stats you have, and then have an amount of upgrade points. I also set current level, but that's not actually necessary. Just make sure you have upgrade points so you know how many you can actually use. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is make sure you've set these in the constructor. Again, mentioned in the previous episode, but just in case anybody's joining now and wants to skip the other stuff, here you go. Make sure you set them in your constructor. This is all done in your character. So I set my default values to 1. You could always, if you were saving and loading a game, you could always load in their stats afterward so that they would have the right stats. But for now, 1 is fine. I set upgrade points to 5 and current level to 1. Okay. The rest of the stuff is actually done in BP. So all of today's actual episode is done in Blueprint. We're not going to be touching code for this because we're going to be doing this all in the widget since this is all handled within this window. And then this window is to display them after we've hit confirm. So once you've made your widgets, again, made this last episode, feel free to make another one right now for the stat display window, which is the button that or the screen that pops up after you've hit confirm. And to make a new widget, you just go to Add New, User Interface. It's all the way at the bottom. You can't see it, but it's the very bottom of this little content thing that's popped up. You see Content, Folder, C++. Go all the way to the bottom. User Interface, Widget Blueprints, the very bottom. 2 below Slate Brush here. Okay, and once you've made your widgets, then you'll see some familiar stuff that we worked on last episode. But now that everybody's caught up, what we're going to be doing today is going over text box, retrieval of value, and input. We're going to be going over slider retrieval of value and input. And we're going to be going over actual buttons to determine a value. Okay? So, we started with strength in the last episode. And that pretty much is exactly the same. I just moved it around a bit to actually make it a little bit cleaner. When we hit confirm, it does all the logic. Alright, so basically, in your construct, we're going to get our player character, cast it to our Gears of War template character, and we're going to set our player reference. So right now, after you have your widget set up, go ahead and make a new variable and get your player reference. Last time we just used get player character a lot, but we should set our player reference. That way we only have to set it once, and then we can continue to use this in the future. Excuse me, I'm getting a bit tired. Okay, so to set your player reference, go into your blueprint where you made your variable, click on the little icon, and search for the code class or your BP class if your character is a blueprint character, and get an object reference to that type. So we're using, yes, my character is called the Gears of War template character. Terrible name considering we've changed this project twice, but now that we're on the right road, we know where we're going with it. So just roll with me. Choose your character's name, get object reference. Here you go. I called it player reference. Set him in the construct. Then what we're going to do is set 3 values. So make 3 more integers: chosen strength value, chosen dexterity value, chosen intellect value. Now, what these values are these are essentially going to be the values that the user has chosen to upgrade them to. The reason we're setting them here is because when you are to do this, so you see how this is on 1, and if I am to change it to 2, it shows the intellect at 2. Okay, well, if the user hasn't adjusted any of these other values, but his strength is like 5 to start off, well, his strength would then display 0 or 1, depending on how you set it up, if we didn't set the chosen strength value just because the user didn't touch it. We want, at a very minimum, for these elements to display the current level of them, despite, if the user has edited them or not. So right off the bat, just take your strength, dexterity, and intellect values from the code that we made and set your new integers that you made in the blueprint. Now, the strength I won't go too much over because we went over this in the first episode of the series, but I do want to cover it again since I did make some changes to it now. Okay, so if you get your... Technically, we don't have to do this anymore, so I think I'm going to take this out. Let me take this out. Sorry, guys. I didn't even really think about that. Okay. So, if we go to onText committed, again, if you need to get this, you go to your text box that you dragged, whatever one it is, into the scene, or into your widget UI thingy here. Scroll all the way down, onText committed, right here. And that's essentially when you've pressed enter, or when you press some sort of confirmation button. So, once that happens, we take the text that's in there, make sure it's numeric, then we take the value, considering it is numeric, because we're going to branch off, and we're going to set our chosen strength value to that value, to the value that's in the text box. If it's not, you see we go around, and we still set our text to enter strength value and last valid string to empty. So what we're doing here in English is essentially we are setting a value if it's a number, and then we're going to reset the text box. So essentially we're keeping reference to this chosen strength value. We're keeping a reference to what the last thing they entered was. We haven't actually deducted the points until we hit confirm, so they can still change it. Alright. Now, onText changed for your strength text box, which is the other part of this, all the way at the bottom here. This is when they type stuff in. They don't have to hit enter or anything, just when they type text. Then we'd still do a check for is numeric. We make sure that the text is not empty. So either it's not, we check that it's either empty or that it's numeric, meaning that it can either accept an empty character, like a return value, or a number. And if it is either of those, then set the last valid string to be this. So the last valid string is what we're using to determine if we will allow the user to type there. And what I mean by that is if we go into our strength text box, we can hit 555, whatever. But as soon as I hit letters, they don't take them because they're not either empty characters or numbers. Again, handled that in the last episode. The reason I'm grouping it together is because I've changed it up a bit, as you guys will be able to tell if you watch the first episode. I just kind of want to go over it again so this can be a one-stop shop. Just make sure if this is not true, we set the text box to be the last valid string. So essentially, what is happening is you're taking the text that the user does put in and erasing the last characters or the invalid characters, any letters or symbols or anything like that. Okay. Now, that's actually the hardest part, believe it or not. So the strength text box from last episode and the small changes I made where I removed all the checks to see if it's greater than the current strength they had, and if you can actually do it with your upgrade points. That's actually the hardest part. So just remove anything that you had. Make it look like this if you watch the first part. And you would like the confirm button to be where that is done. You could want it where if you change the text in the text box, you want it to upgrade your points right away. If that's the case, don't remove that stuff. That is working perfectly. But I did want to show this method to you as well, because I think it's a bit cleaner, as ugly as it does look down here, and I think it makes a bit more sense. Okay, now there's one more thing we have to do before we get to the confirm. We have to do on pressed for our 2 buttons. So the intellect arrows are these guys. So essentially this is a button, and I put in the text of little arrow, left arrow, right arrow. So essentially this is a button, and I put in the text like little left arrow, right arrow. And what we're going to be doing is when we press these buttons, we want to change the value of our intellect, of our chosen intellect value. So, and we're also going to print it out right here. And to do that, when you add text, this is literally just text. So right here, you can go and bind it by going to the text column, clicking down, bind, create binding. And then it looks like this. We get our chosen intellect value, to text, return node. So when you first hit bind, you'll have this and your return node. Just literally drag in your chosen intellect value like that and drag it into your return node. It'll automatically do the to text thing, as you can see. It did it right behind there. So it's that easy, but that way we can see what the actual intellect value is. That's why you can see this changing when we press the button. Okay, now to make it actually go up and down when we press the left and right keys, well, that's the onPressed command, the same way that we use the onTextCommitted for the text boxes. If you click on your button, you can do onPressed or onClicked, but onPressed will also work if you press A on a controller or if you press some sort of confirmation button while it is hovered and selected, or focused, I should say. Okay, so onPressed for the left arrow, we want to take our chosen intellect value, which remember has been set to our intellect value that we set in the code in the constructor. So right now it is 1. And what we want to do is we want to clamp this value between 1 and 9, or 0 and 9, either way. I should change these both. But clamp this value between 1 and 9 because we only have 10 possible stats that we want. You could change it to be whatever you want. So, you know, maybe you go up to 50, maybe you go up 100. You can clamp it between these values so that you only have the ones between the min and the max to use. And it is inclusive. So, if we press the left arrow, we want to grab our value, make sure it's not going to go below 1, and then subtract 1 from it, and then set our chosen intellect value. The reason we do this check at 1 instead of 0 is because if we did it at 0, your strength or your intellect could go to -1. So I can show you what that looks like. If we had this as a min of 0, then when I press back, it says, okay, I can go to 0. Okay, I can go to -1. Well, we don't want to clamp it where it can go to -1. We always want to have at least 0 intellect, not negative. Or maybe you do want negative, in which case that's fine. But let it go to 1 as the minimum, subtract 1 from the chosen intellect, set the new value. And the press right, or the right arrow, is just as simple. Essentially let it go from 1 to 9. This way, once you go to 9, you can add 1 and it can go to 10, but not any higher. So you should see we can go all the way to 10. No higher. Okay. Lastly, what we need to do to make everything work is, it's kind of an ugly piece of code, or blueprint here, but it is all the same thing. I'm just doing it 3 times over with different values. So you could make functions for this, whatever. I think you'll find it's not so bad once we get into it here. I'll show you exactly what's going on. So this is on the confirm changes button, which is, for me, that is this guy right here. What we want to do is when we hit confirm, make sure we have enough upgrade points, which remember we set to be 5 in the code. And we want to make sure that the values that we entered in here allow us to actually go to the value that we want. Again, we have 5 upgrade points. If we try and go in 7, it rejects it. If we try to go to 6, whoops, it accepts it. And we can spread the points throughout, like 2 strength, 2 dex, 2 intellect. Okay, so again, button on pressed. We go to our graph. Okay, now we are going to need our player reference here. So feel free to get your player reference that we set at the beginning and right click on it, and you can do convert to validated get. It'll make this crazy thing. So this is the same as doing player reference is valid. These are the same thing. This puts it all in one node. You might like it, you might not. Do it however you'd like. Just either use this or this. Make sure it's valid before we go to use it. Otherwise your game will crash. That's no good. What we want to do is we want to grab our upgrade points and grab the value of the stat we're going to check if we can level up to that point, if that makes sense. So we want to take the stat that we're trying to use, in this case strength. We're going to check our upgrade points, the amount that we have remaining, and see if we can actually reach the chosen strength value based on those 2 values. Okay, so it's the same process for all your stats, but here's how it works. We take our upgrade points and our strength value, we add them together. We check if they're greater than or equal to the chosen strength value. Think about it. If we have 1 strength and 5 upgrade points, and our chosen strength value is 6, this is equal, these guys are equal, we can make those, we can upgrade strength to be chosen strength value. If we have upgrade points is 5, strength value is 1, but chosen strength value is 7, then chosen strength value is greater than strength value plus upgrade points, so this becomes false. Once this becomes false, this branch will become false, in which case we'll skip the action for upgrading or updating the strength value. It will stay the same. Okay? However, if it is greater than, so if the upgrade points are greater than or equal to the chosen strength value, so we use our same example, 5 upgrade points, 1 strength, and we have our chosen strength of 4, then we'll have 2 upgrade points remaining afterward. Thus, this will return true, this part right here. We're going to throw this into an AND boolean, literally just AND boolean right here. And what this does is it makes sure that all the conditions you give it, and you can add more if you wanted, but all the conditions you give it are actually true when you go to do this check at the end. So we have 1 that's true. We also want to make sure, drag off our player again, and we want to make sure our chosen strength value is greater than our strength value. Because think about it, if our strength value was 5, our upgrade points were 3. That's 8. But our chosen strength value is 1. Well, yeah, this is greater, but we're going down in strength, so we shouldn't have to use any of our upgrade points to actually do this. So if you wanted to be able to have the player go down, you should probably give them their points back or something like that, allow them to respec. So for now, if we don't do any of that, just make sure that the chosen strength value, the value they're trying to set, is greater than their current strength value. That's the easiest way to do that. All right. Now, this will return true, and this will return true. Once they do, we update our upgrade points, and our upgrade points essentially become chosen strength value minus upgrade points plus strength value. So, again, think about it this way. We have chosen strength value of 7. No, chosen strength value of 5, let's do. We have upgrade points 5, and we have strength value of 1. Well, we can use, so upgrade points plus strength value, 5 plus 1 is 6. So we do 6 minus our chosen strength value, which is 5. We have 1, this result will be 1, which means we have 1 upgrade point left. So, in the true on this branch, set your upgrade points. Update them. Make sure we have the right value down. Then, we set our strength value, our new strength value for the player, to the chosen strength value. That's the whole point of this variable. It's the number that we want to set our strength value to. Okay, now I know that probably was a lot, and it might not be the cleanest here. I tried to keep it pretty clean for you guys, but I'd understand if it's a bit confusing. So we'll go over these other two, but the good thing is they're essentially the exact same thing. technically the way the dexterity slider works, it's a bit different than the text box, and so are the buttons. So it's going to be a few changes here and there, but it's the same exact logic. So regardless if strength was true or false, we still want to check our dex upgrade and see if we can actually update that value. So either true or false, we go to another branch. This branch consists of, this blue line is still the player reference. Okay. We take the upgrade points and the dexterity value. We add them together. We make sure they are greater than or equal to the chosen dexterity value. Now, in this case, I'm not actually using chosen dexterity value. I know it's kind of poor form. We should set this when the value is changed and use it. So essentially, to make this not as confusing, this is essentially what we're doing. However, I never set the chosen dexterity value. There is a reason I did that. It's not worth going into now. We will cover it later in another episode when I go to address that. But here is the reason. So, Dexterity Slider is the slider in our designer. If you click on it and it says is variable and it's checked, this will become a variable in your blueprint. So as long as that's checked, you'll be able to get the value from it. So literally drag in Dexterity Slider, get value. This returns the current value the slider is on. Then you can truncate, but you don't have to. Truncate makes it go from a float to an integer. Sliders are floats by default. And what you can do is if you drag this in to where the chosen dex would be, right here, it will automatically put this truncate node in for you. Okay, that's what this is. This is getting the current value from the slider. All right. But then it's the same logic. So see, we also want to check if the value from the slider is greater than the current dexterity value. Because if it's not greater, we don't want to be able to lower our dexterity, especially at the cost of upgrade points. So what do? We make sure that this is true. And we make sure that this is true. That's what this and boolean is here for. And if it is, then we set our new upgrade points to be upgrade points plus dexterity value minus the current value of the slider. Okay? And then we do the same thing. We set dexterity value to chosen dexterity value, which is essentially this value right here. Okay? And then whether that's true or false, again, true goes the whole way through, false goes up above. We then finally check the intellect value. One more time, guys. So we take our upgrade points and our intellect value, we add them together, make sure they are greater than or equal to our chosen intellect, and make sure that our chosen intellect is greater than our intellect value. So our chosen intellect has to be greater than the actual intellect value we have right now. Then, if it is true, this and this, we go and we set our upgrade points to the upgrade points plus our current intellect value minus our chosen intellect value. And we set our intellect value to be the chosen intellect value. Now, once we're done setting all our stats, and you could do these individually if you don't want to check them all at the same time. In fact, you probably shouldn't check them all at the same time. It's not really the nicest in terms of the gameplay to do that. Because what'll happen is, if I set this to be 3, I still have 4 upgrade points. Or, excuse me, 3 upgrade points. And then I set this halfway. And then I up this. Well, strength and dexterity went, and I used all my points, so intellect could not go. But maybe I didn't realize that, so I want to adjust them one at a time. So you probably should adjust these individually, but the good thing is you can break this out. This does not have to be in one button press. You can put these wherever, just make sure you have the check split up. Essentially, every branch you see is the time you would split it. So like this would all be one function. This could all be one function. Or technically this should all be one function right here. There you go. So, lastly, what we want to do is once we've set our values, we want to make sure we can actually display them after the fact. So the reason we do that is because right now the dexterity slider bar doesn't really have any values displaying to it, and we can splice that up and make it do that. But I thought it would be nice to be able to show you what everything looked like at the end. one more quick note. If you go click on your slider bar, you can scroll down and change a few things here. Like I'd set the min and max to 0 and 10 because I wanted my stats to go from 0 and 10. My current value was at 0, but you can set it to whatever. And then the step size is the amount to go by when you're using a controller or keyboard. So when I'm using the mouse, I can go like this. Or, whoops, I missed. I can kind of drag it all around. However, if I am to click on it, and if I was able to focus it, so I don't have a way to focus it right now. But if you're in the game and you're using a controller and you focus your bar, well, you don't necessarily want this much range of motion, right? It would take forever. The step size makes it jump like 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, you know what I mean? It makes it jump from one value to the next. So make sure that's just a solid 1, I think is the best way for that. So basically your options are 0 to 10. And you can actually disable mouse input altogether if you want. That way they can only choose from 0 to 10. You don't have to do truncation or anything. Okay. So, like I said, lastly, what we want to do is spawn our new widget. So we'll make the widget first, then we'll spawn it. This is the stat display window, which literally just has the names of the skills. And then I have 3 bindings, all to display the actual values. So these are just text, just bound like before. I'll show you right here. Get strength value, get dexterity value, get intellect value. Literally get my player reference, which in this new widget we set in the construct. Player character, cast to our template character, set our player reference. Make sure you set this the same way as before. Like that. When you're here, you use your player reference, get the strength value, and return it. Dexterity. Get the player reference, get the dexterity value, return it. Get the player reference, get the intellect value, return it. There you go. It's that simple. Now all we have to do is spawn this widget and we are good to go. So if we go back to our stat assignment window, which remember is this guy where we can choose all of our stats. When we're done, whether it be the confirm button that we did everything in here or a separate button or whatever, it doesn't matter. Separate screen, whatever. When you're ready, you can always create a widget by doing create widget, selecting your class. So mine is called stat display window, and you can see I've already selected it here. If you're doing multiplayer, you'll want to set your owning player to be the player that opened it, but we'll get into more multiplayer stuff later down the road. Then you want to add it to the viewport so we can actually see it, and we want to call remove parent. So remove parent removes the current widget from the screen. So if I don't do remove parent, when I hit confirm, these widgets are over top of each other. But remove parent will remove this self, or whatever you give it. In this case, I'm giving it nothing, so it's self. It will remove the stat assignment window, this guy from the screen. And you'll just have your stat display window. Like that. So there you go, guys. That's how you can actually use a stat or skill display window and set your actual stats using 3 different methods: text box, slider bar, or buttons. And with that, now we can actually get more into the upgrade points and leveling up and how you get upgrade points from leveling up. So the next episode will be all about leveling up and getting yourself more upgrade points, as well as earning experience and things like that. Alright guys, well thank you for watching this video. I know it was a bit of a longer one, but I wanted to really go over this and kind of explain it because this is something that's not too, it's not inherently understood by a lot of people because people don't really think, myself included when I started programming, all the things that have to go into simply keeping track of some values and updating them as you level up. So I think that's a very important lesson to learn. There you go. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions on the YouTube comments. If you would like extra help or had any issues or anything like that, then you can join our Discord. I can't link it in an iCard because YouTube is weird, but you can see it in the description. It's a link in the description. It just says Discord. We have over 100 members now. Thank you so much to everybody who joined. It's a wonderful, loving community, and we'd be happy to help you out if you join it. Lastly, if you want to come join us on Twitch and see us do something other than program, then you can come join us on Twitch at Shawnthebro 27. So someone took my name, that's why I'm 27, but it's fine, it's fine. I'm not salty or upset at all about that. No, but all jokes aside, we do Dark Souls Wednesday, or Souls Wednesday, I've just called it since we're going to be doing Bloodborne and Demon Souls as well. And we also do Resident Evil Friday, so we've been running through all the Resident Evil games on Fridays. And usually we'll do a multiplayer game every here or again. Yeah, that's about it for today, guys, but thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.